Bookstage and Screen, Samantha and Gordon, but there are actually people in with us.
I know, we get very excited when people actually come and visit us as opposed to talking on the phone. And we are very grateful to have Billy Smedley here and Sally McLean, two of the brains. Well, you're the brains behind Shakespeare Republic, but you're the star of a few of at least two, isn't it?
There's a couple.
And there's a few. I've seen you in the background of a few as well. Yeah,
running around doing stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Fabulous.
Exactly.
Now I've just introduced Shakespeare Republic, but Sally, tell us a little bit about this fantastic web series.
Well, Shakespeare Republic is a collective of Australian-based actors who I basically got on the phone and said, "Do you want to come play with some Shakespeare?" And so they and I worked together. I'm director. I'm also in the cast, to create Shakespeare, or take Shakespeare monologues and place them very firmly in 21st century settings. And it's done to deliberately, obviously, to show that that Shakespeare's words still have relevance today. In some cases, unfortunately,
yes,
considering what he wrote about, but human nature hasn't changed, and it's a way to kind of illustrate that. Number one, that giving people a chance to access Shakespeare in bite-sized pieces is often a lot better or easier in introduction than sending them to see a complete play or a complete film, just because of the volume of language. But if they get to do little, up to 5-minute monologues with actors in modern settings, it just breaks those barriers down a bit more to help people access the work, because we happen to think he's a bit of a genius, and that it's kind of good to keep working with his words. So that's the idea behind Shakespeare Republic and what eventually became the web series.
So did it start off as another idea, not a web series, or was it always you thought?
They were plays, Sam. Shakespeare wrote these plays.
Boom. All right. I've been putting my place there. Who is this man?
No, the idea for our version of the Shakespeare plays actually started, it always was, well, I first came up with the idea when I worked and lived in London. I'd just come out of drama school there, and my thesis was on Elizabethan theatre. And up until that point, I hadn't really been a Shakespeare fan, which was really interesting, which is hilarious when I look at my life now, because it's absolutely imbued with Shakespeare pretty much in every corner. But I hadn't really understood the language. My big thing was, again, it's, as everyone mostly that struggles, it's just the language is ancient, and it's very hard if you haven't had a good exposure to it to sort of decide that's your thing, and you've got to work. But anyway, went through drama school, had a fantastic Shakespeare teacher, got to do my Elizabethan theatre dissertation. Suddenly the world was real and living. And I said, I get it now, right. Suddenly it just started to make sense, because it was presented in different ways to me, and it was getting up and doing it on my feet and watching it in performance rather than reading it, which made the huge difference as well. Yeah. And so I started my production company, Incognita Enterprises, which had Sir Nigel Hawthorne as my honorary patron. At the time in London. And I was talking to Nigel about, I just think there's a way to introduce Shakespeare to people, because of course was a massive Shakespeare actor and Royal Shakespeare Company and all that stuff. And he said, I completely agree. And I said, I've got this idea if we could do bite-sized pieces. And he was like, well, there's just no forum for it. And at the time there wasn't. Web series didn't exist. There was basically, you had to sell the idea to a TV network or you weren't going to get anywhere with getting it made. And I was working for the BBC too at the time in production, but it was just like, I just don't see a fit for that. They're kind of doing things already and that they just won't have room for it. So anyway, the idea died a bit, put on a shelf essentially. And it was a couple of years ago. I'm working on a major feature film documentary at the moment as well as a director, and I needed a break. And that's when I said, the Shakespeare thing, that would be really good to go play with. So that's how it came to be. So it rested for probably about 15 years. It was a very rush-arrested project. And then it all suddenly just came together. And it was just talking to some of the actors like Michaela Bannis and Alan Fletcher and those guys in that first round, and Billy and Rowena Hudson and Ben Steele, just sort of bringing all them into the mix. The ideas just kept coming thick and fast. And then it became, funnily enough, exactly how I'd envisioned it 15 years earlier. But it was just the right time, I think. It needed the time, and it needed a web series, because that's basically was the forum that it was perfect for.
Yes, yeah.
Do you know what I find handy? Because I'm about to drop a bombshell on air. I'm not a huge Shakespeare aficionado. Boom!
Good, excellent.
But what I do like with your web series is you can click the closed captions button and you can get the dialogue written up. So as you're hearing it, you can see it And if you're not really au fait with it, it does. It makes more sense than just hearing an actor where it's like too much. Like if you're watching the whole movie, it might be too much.
Or play. Apparently they play.
Yes. So like, going to see Macbeth at the cinema, I can't recall who was the last person who did a Macbeth.
Michael Fassbender. Yeah.
That's a big chunk. This is like a little bite size and you can see it. So if you're a student or something, perfect.
Well, thank you for commenting on that. That was actually interesting because, again, the challenge I face is that now that I'm so, embedded in the Shakespeare way of, working, that you do forget that even though they are bite-sized pieces, people may still struggle. And it was actually some feedback. Again, this series keeps evolving. It was feedback from some of our viewers who were saying, I really like to be able to read. I was like, oh yeah, that's a really good point. Maybe we should be doing that in season 2. So now, and actually I have to go back and fix season 1's CC, same thing, because I hadn't done it for them. And I suddenly thought, there's only 6 of those. I'll get to those later. There's 13 in season 2. I kind of need to get onto that. But yeah, thank you, because it's actually, I'm glad to hear that that's doing that, because it's the intention. And we discovered through our YouTube stats that one of our biggest audiences are actually young guys aged between 13 and 17, which is really interesting because we think it's a bunch of kids, particularly young guys, just Googling their homework for English. So if I can help them get to grips with Shakespeare, I'm glad and I'm happy. And also the next one after that is girls in the same age group. So we've got a lot of students that are using that for whatever reason. I'm presuming it's to do their English homework and to try to get their head around a character or a piece. And that's perfect, because that's actually the other thing it's meant for, is to help not just those that may be interested in Shakespeare or those that have great love for Shakespeare, but those that are struggling and need to get their heads around it. I mean, that's been an amazing thing. And it's been interesting for us because we've also got people from countries where English is not their first language who watch. And Germany, we've got a big watch. I mean, funnily enough, we discovered Michaela Bannis, who's beautiful and in both seasons, has got quite a big following in Germany. And we actually think it's because of MacLeod's Daughters, but we're not sure. But it's interesting because they all it's really funny. It was like, wow, okay, that's random. But what's so great is that these guys, not many of whom don't speak English as a first language, obviously, and even aren't necessarily fluent in English, have actually been watching this series, obviously initially because of Michaela, but we've been getting this fan mail from them saying, I watched it because of Michaela, but then I just really loved it. So then I watched all of it, and now I really like Shakespeare, and I never did before because I never understood it, but now I'm actually understanding it. So that has been, for us, huge as well.
Oh, great.
That it's, getting people that don't speak English as a first language. So it's interesting.
But what about the acting side of it? When you're given like this, and this is going to be a big forum, obviously it's going out to the world, we're taking on like the challenge of Shakespeare and making sure that you do it right. I mean, what is it when you're the actor? What is it like?
Is it daunting? Like to...
If you approach it with the mindset of, I have to get it right, then you're probably not going to have a very good time. If you approach it more from... you just got to, you can empathise with what the character's going through, then you can work out who is this person, what is this human going through, and how can I relate to that. If you kind of, that's where you kind of start from, and then you get an expert like Sally to steer you in the right direction. But if you focus on, this goes for any actor approaching any role. If you focus on getting it right, you're gonna get it really wrong.
Well, I guess, as you say, Sally's such an expert in the Shakespeare field and has such a love for it. Working together, then that is great, isn't it? Before you get there, you're obviously rehearsing and working through this short snippet, really, but it's still a very important one. I guess that's also interesting. How do you choose which text you have? It's
interesting.
He's barely got anything.
I know. So
400.
challenged on content. But no, truly, that is actually part of the problem because there is so much. And what is interesting, look, it's always done in collaboration. So I have an idea in my head as to what I'd like an actor to do in the cast, and then I will put it out to them to say, what are you interested in doing? And then we will have a look at that. And I obviously then need to look at that from an overall series perspective. Does that fit in with with what's going on? Are we going to get too much of one? And actually, it was funny, series 2, I was like, there were some comedies in there. I'm sure there were some comedies in there. I don't know if they're there anymore, like we've approached it, but it is trying to break that up a little. But yeah, so the actor will come to me, and sometimes it's a perfect fit, and I'll just go, great, let's do that.
Yeah.
My big rule is none of the actors are bound by gender or age for the roles that they pick.
Right.
And also my big rule is there's no wrong.
Yeah.
And part of and my other big rule is this is all an experiment. It's done to take pressure off, because we've had 3 Hamlets now, and that's always a bit frightening, I think, just because of what that role is. But the big rule about that is you're not playing Hamlet as you've seen Hamlet before. You're playing Hamlet as it would be if you were Hamlet.
Yeah.
As you, the individual, playing this role.
Yeah.
So it is that thing of actually. Yeah, it really is a collaboration. I mean, look, I have said to a couple of actors, no, you may not.
Yeah.
And it's not because I don't think they can do it, but it's more because either I've got ideas, because I've got, the next 2 series planned out. So it's either got an idea for another series later down the track, or it just isn't quite a right fit for what's going on. Or in some cases, I'll just say to an actor, I think you need to challenge yourself a bit more.
Yeah.
Because there's a danger, and fair enough, I don't have a problem. I'll just do this one because I know it.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, let's do something different then, because that would be more fun. And it works because we work so in depth with that one piece. So we're still mining it for information right up to the day of shooting, which means the actors are still getting new things to think about and play with, because the big rule is with anything, be as spontaneous as you can be with the work, having done the homework that will support you once you get there to play it. So